As you can see, that's where the problem is. Hi there, this is Ray with Easy Simple Mechanic, and today we're going to continue working on this Toyota forklift. We're going to go ahead and try and see if we can't finish getting that axle out and tearing into that transmission a little bit, but we'll see how far we get. So hold on and let's get to the action. I guess the first thing we're going to do is pull the wheels off, and then we're going to go ahead and pull the axles out from in there, from the differential. Then we're going to go ahead and pull all the bolts around this pumpkin right here and see if we can't get that whole thing out of there, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I guess you saw that I pulled the axles out. They got a little bit of rust in here where the races were sitting on both sides. And then I got all the bolts off of here. But it looks like this is all the space I'm gonna have to be able to pull this out. It's got these studs on there that are not allowing, well, it's got these studs right there that are not allowing the pumpkin to drop out of there unless we lift the other part, the other side of the engine. So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try and get on the other side of the engine and tip it up some and see how much room that will give me to be able to pull this out. Okay, so it looks like I found the motor mounts. They're all the way up front, so that's not going to allow that to tip much. So I'm going to have to take those bolts loose and then use a cherry picker or something to lift this engine up to be able to get that. The other thing we could do is just go ahead and pull everything out, but just pull the engine with everything. If I get those out, well, there'll still be a lot of stuff to disconnect, so maybe not. But okay, so we hooked onto the engine up front here with the cherry picker. We loosened the motor mounts in front. You can see that's lifted up. Same way on the other side. I also went ahead and took this panel loose to allow it to lift higher on the front, and with that we were able to rock this out of there and get that out. Boy, what a pain that is. So I guess the next step is I looked in there and I don't see anything that would release that from the transmission other than the gear. So it's just got to be slipped on there. For some reason it was just really hard. So when I go back together, I'm probably gonna try and put this thing back together first, this differential, and then I'll slip it onto that. But now I got to try and figure out how I'm gonna get that one out of there. I'm gonna have to hammer on it and see if I can bust it loose. So let's get on that. And I'm getting a chance to look inside the transmission here and see how this is all coming together. It's just what I feared, is that bearing on that gear is just bound up so bad. But it looks like the whole thing is one unit, that shaft that slides all the way in on all these gears. As you can see back in the back there, if we lift the third member, it moves the whole thing. But I don't know if there's any pins or anything that is holding that, because those gears are too big for them to come out through the hole in the front here. So basically I'm gonna have to tear the whole transmission apart right here, and try and get those gears off one at a time. And then the only one that'll be holding it will be this one right here on the back. And I'll just have to keep pressing on that to get the rest of it out. But it looks like this gear here is now hitting against here, this little knob here. So if I don't get that gear loose where it can slide that way, I won't be able to continue to pull the shaft. So I think these things go together all in one when you're assembling it, is that you have to, you know, put one gear on at a time, and then that's how they go on, and as you assemble the transmission. I'm gonna start by pulling out this input shaft, which I already have the cover off the back here. I'm just gonna pull that out, and then we'll go from there. Start pulling some of the, I'll pull the synchro or the shifter lever off, and that so that we can go ahead and get to the stuff down below. And then that way we'll just work our way down. Let's see what we can do. So we'll have to get that. So what I did so far is I went ahead and pulled the little, there was a little cotter pin in here, and there's a little screw in here, and it came with a little spring and a ball in the bottom and a spring that comes out of there, so it allows the shift rod to come out of this shift fork. And then as you slide it out, there's a couple of O-rings. There's one here and one over here on this side that goes in there. So make sure you take those off as you slide this shaft out, and make sure you replace those when you go back together with it. So let me finish getting that shift fork out of there. So I'm just going to continue to slide this out. Yeah, like that. And then I need to use a pry bar or something, push that out. Once I get that out, I'll be able to get this shift fork out. See, we just keep pulling that till it comes all the way out. Now I already pulled the O-rings out of there. They were kind of wore out. Maybe that's where the oil went. It all leaked out of here. And if they share the same oil, this differential and the transmission, once the oil gets below a certain level, like right down here, then they don't no longer share the oil. This will wind up with the oil level down here, and this will wind up with the oil level down in the bottom to whatever level. I think it's going to be up here where the bearing is, so it might be like here, somewhere around here. And so if this had leaks, which is here, there, where that other O-ring is, maybe the input bearing or the input shaft, or this other shaft that's right here, you know, if they have leaks, or this back plate here, the majority of it looked to be coming from this O-ring right here. But anyways, if that oil leaks out of there, eventually it gets low enough, it no longer shares with the differential. That's why this still had quite a bit of oil in it. That one had very little oil. So once it gets to that level, then they're kind of on their own. That one had leaks. This one did not. The differential did not. And therefore, that's what went bad. So let's continue on. Here's the shift fork. We'll just slide it out. We'll put it down here. And we can take a look inside here and see what we see. See, this is all in one piece here. But now what we need to do is see about getting this gear off here. And it has a similar thing, is basically it just has a keeper. If you look on this side, there's just a couple of bolts. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, right there. And those bolts will hold the shaft that goes through this gear. It'll hold it in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove everything so that I can replace all the O-rings if we can find that bearing, and if we can salvage this shaft, then we'll go ahead and put all new seals in it. So it should be good for a while. So let's just keep working at it. And to get the clutch release bearing out, we just take out those 4 bolts, which I've already done. And then you just slide this up, and you got the clutch release bearing, which is out of grease and not too good. We're gonna have to clean this collar up. And then this is just the input shaft seal that we're gonna have to replace. That's gonna be, if I can find one. I hope I can find these seals. If not, that's gonna be challenging. It looks still pretty pliable, so we'll see. And then I took that off to give me room to just go ahead and knock out the pin. See, there's the pin, this pin right here. I gotta clean it up a little bit, but I gotta knock it out into the transmission to get that gear out. So we'll see. I'll have to go ahead and push it and clean it up, and then we'll try and knock it out. After studying this a little bit further, what it seems like is that there's a nut with the lock ring on it on the end of the shaft that holds everything together. And the only way I can see to get it out is there's a little cover or like a seal plate or something there on that side that needs to come off so that we can get to that nut to be able to pull that apart. I just don't see any other way to get this out of there. So I guess my options now, which is a good thing, because I wouldn't have been able to get this far if I didn't understand, you know, if I had taken the transmission off first, there's no way I would have got this separated. So the good thing is now I only have some bolts to take off right there on the bell housing, and I can go ahead and pull this this transmission out. There's a couple bolts that hold the muffler right there, and the rest are on the bell housing. So we should be able to get to those and pull those out. I don't know if I should pull that clutch disc while I'm at it, but I'm thinking I'm probably gonna have to replace it. The only thing is I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find one. So that's my concern right now. So anyway, let me go ahead and see if I can't get this thing out of here. I went ahead and decided to go ahead and pull the clutch pressure plate and disc off, just to be able to get to those bolts down there on the bottom. Because with this lever in the way, just made it too hard to get to those bolts with the wrench, which is what I'm gonna need to get those. So we'll just keep working at it. Well, folks, as you can see, we were able to get this off, and we got it in on the workbench here. So we'll go ahead and start digging into it. It got kind of dark on me, so I'm only working on this part-time, so don't have a lot of time to spend on it. But nonetheless, we got it out. So now we're gonna tear into this. We're gonna try and get this off here. Go ahead and tear into it and see if we can't get that little cover. There's a little, gosh, you can't see it. Yeah, it just looks like a little bubble right here. But we need to get that off. I don't know if we'll find a replacement if we mess it up, but we'll just have to see what we could do. That's all. Okay, it turns out this is a seal that goes in there, and to get it out without damaging it, basically what I did is I pushed the gears as far back as I could, so that would give me some space down in there. And then I took and I knocked it from one side of the seal. I knocked it in with a little deal on the bottom side, one of my extensions, until I could get in behind it here with the pry bar. Then I was able to pry it out, and it looks like I was able to save the seal. So I may just take and clean it up and put some silicone to go back with it. Then I went ahead and used a 30mm to get that bolt loose right here. And so now, there's a little lock washer here that you have to flatten before you take that nut loose. Okay, so from here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have to knock this shaft through there. This is the setup I have, but I set it up this way where I'm holding the bell housing up, and then I took a punch and I punched on the shaft in the center, and until I got it moving, and it pressed this bearing off the top. Once it did that, it kind of fell down. So now I could just lift the case up a little bit at a time as I pull parts off. And then that way we can get the parts off that we need. Well, there she is, folks. All the parts are out here. Finally got it torn apart. I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news is there was no bearing that was bound up. What it is it's a sleeve, a bushing, and it got all rusted up in here. See, this is all rusted. But what happened is that the ear on this bushing broke off, and it allowed this gear to slide up this way and get jammed onto that gear. If you recall, previously it looked like this gear was pushed back in the transmission about 1/4 of an inch, well, about this much. So what happened is, instead of it staying up onto this collar right here and not going any further, since this ear broke off all the way around, it looks like, see that? It broke all the way off. Then it bound up on that. It got kind of bound up in there, and that's why it wasn't moving. But in reality, the only stuff, I mean, it's got a little bit of rust here. Now, the bad news is, I don't know if I'm gonna find this parts to fix this. So that's gonna have to be it. And from the looks of things here, this is the input there. There's really no other way for this to come apart. It goes in as a unit, and the shavings, I guess all the shavings on the drain, there's a magnet. All the shavings from that piece just kind of fell down in the pan of the transmission. So yeah, there it is. See, here's the collar right down there in the bottom. That's what the problem was. This little collar broke off of that bushing that went in there, and that's what did it. Well, folks, I guess that's gonna do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.